Hey everyone, it's Joe Glines here in outside Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, and Jack, you hear from outside Copenhagen, Denmark.
Yeah, it's fair enough, isn't it? Right. I guess
Yeah,
I'm about an hour from Dallas, so I guess technically I could still say Dallas, and I'm not lying. But I finally got internet back at my home, and that was like about 3 weeks of waiting, maybe a little longer actually, but it was probably a month total since I'd ordered it. Anyway, so it's exciting to be here.
yeah. It's great that you have some connection again.
Yeah. So, and while we were chatting, we were discussing overall. Just one is in Jackie's kids are a little younger than mine, but we were discussing how they have no concept of not having the internet. Like it's not, it's always there, and there's never, very rarely, problems with the speed of it too, right? Of even latency.
Yeah,
And
totally.
And I think I told you this before, Jackie, but when I was calling the company out here, I ended up going with DSL because I couldn't get anything else. And I was calling them, and on their email signature, they had two phone numbers, and they weren't labeled. So I called the first one and left a voicemail on like, I swear it's a machine too. It's not even like, like a voicemail. It's a literal, like, recorded machine. I swear to God, it sounds like it. Anyway, the second one, I'm like, well, let me call the second line. Maybe that's a cell line. So I call, and I literally get the dial-up modem sound that you mentioned earlier with
the fax.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah.
I remember calling faxes. Yeah, that's funny. It sounds totally like a modem. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So anyway, as it relates to AutoHotkey, right? So we were talking about this a bit and going, it is a really good point of, I don't know, Jackie, do you know, because I think you said you're using Office 365, that's the actual, the web version at work. Is that right? Or did you mention that at one point?
Yeah, we do have Office 365 and we still have a desktop version of most of the Office programs. And I do believe that there still is that option in 365. I don't know if they're at 19 or whatever. I think we have 2016 on our systems, but the issue was at one point they were kind of making it clear that we would probably make a full switch over to just going browser, and that ended up not being the case because a lot of people simply weren't able to do exactly the same things in the browser version as they can do in the desktop version. Mm-hmm. But not because of what they were able to do programmatically, but just shared Excel documents and stuff like that worked differently. So there were some different issues there. But yeah, it was like when I saw that news or that whatever post they did on that, I was like, but how am I gonna automate something Office related in the cloud? Right. And really wasn't very clear how to do it from my workstation, if it was at all doable.
Well, I mean, we can always, which neither of us like, but get back to the, looking for an image type thing and clicking it, which is, it's a thing, but it's just definitely not the preferred, reliable way, especially when you're trying to share it, right? Because I know for you, you're often sharing your stuff for your work stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I still see, maybe 2 hours ago or something, when I saw someone in the AutoHotkey group asking for help about automating web pages, and he was doing it low key, some waiting for pixel colors and stuff like that, and it was like he wanted to be able to wait for a page to load more robustly, and he had ended up finding Selenium which is okay. It's something you will find if you search for automating browsers. And I was like, I was on another thing, so I haven't answered him or anything, but maybe someone else did. But there are so many other options currently with going with IE or going with the Chrome library or going with straight up HTTP calls or other different types of ways you could probably automate it. And it's like, it must be something that you see quite a lot, that there are so many options that it even becomes hard to teach new people, or for them to research themselves might be a way just to put it.
Yeah.
It's like if you search for automation online, you will pretty quickly get, I don't know what's called, Zapier or something.
Zapier, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Which on the surface, if you just look at their front page, sounds as if it can automate anything. Yeah, if you're online, it can do quite a lot for you. But it's made for web pages and online events triggering and stuff like that. If you're somehow, yeah, exactly. If you're somehow trying to do stuff on your workstation or with your smaller, more stationary tasks, then that's not for you. And I think there's a lot of that going around. Yeah, there's this no coding, no learning, no whatever thing over here you can get. And when you look into it, it's, yeah, if you want someone who comes to your web page and pushes a button, something will happen. But that's not something the majority actually needs to automate, I'm guessing.
Well, especially around people that end up using AutoHotkey in any sort of a way, right? They're mostly working on a PC, trying to automate something on their computer, and that, yeah, Zapier is not going to help them with doing that. Which also gets back to the kind of where we started with, was there's the online server stuff, and hey, you know what? There are advantages to doing working in the cloud, right? There's some big advantages. One is, which I've dealt with this too, is like, let's say I was recording this Zoom meeting, and instead of recording it to the desktop, which I am, I was recording it into the cloud, and then I wanted to share that, with something else. I don't have to take it off of my computer and upload it the lowest, because I'm at 1 megabyte per second upload speed, right? I could go server to server and do something really fast. Or let's say I was doing some analysis in Excel on a large file. I don't have to open it in my computer, right? I can open it on a server, which has much better specifications, right? The speed and everything, do a lot more stuff, right? Those are both really great reasons to be working in the cloud, instead of having it locally. However, if you run into like things like I just had, where I went 3 weeks without having internet access to a computer, I couldn't even have done anything because I couldn't connect to those things.
Yeah, and I'd say in Denmark, just some numbers I heard today, we have apparently over time used a lot of money on our electric grid. So when people have outages, that's just almost unheard of. I know I had some last year. At one point, I had a notification on my phone that the power had been out for 7 minutes, between 2 and 2.7. So yeah. I was like, well, really? And it was years ago I had last seen any kind of power outage. Yeah. And it's like, some people don't have them and others have them more. And it's the same thing with internet. I've now become accustomed to always being online, but it still happens. Someone somewhere digs over a big cable, or some connection point burns out or whatever it might be, and
lightning strike.
You're just stranded. And it's like we had that recently, a few months ago at least, where the cable internet here didn't work for maybe 48 hours or something like that. And sure enough, me and my wife's phones and all that worked just fine. They used the 4G network, and we were finally connected. But my children's devices that didn't have SIM cards, that were only Wi-Fi compatible, they were out for 2 days, and they're like, my kids might not be old enough to ask the question of what did you do before the internet, but it's almost at that level, right? It's like they were having a hard time of understanding that the internet wouldn't be working in an hour or when they got home from school or after whatever, right? It's like constantly asking, because it's just like, why did you turn it off? I didn't. It's like yeah. So I'd say we have probably, both you and me, seen a lot of questions with people being behind specific company walls so they can't access whatever, or people doing stuff on servers within secure network accesses, and all those weird types of setups that people have out there. So as long as we have those, I think that programming languages like AutoHotkey and other things that are so lightweight and can really be used without internet connection will still have a merit somehow, some reason to exist.
Yeah, it could be interesting when 5G fully rolls out and is everywhere, because latency is another one of those things that, honestly, latency, that's my big, even though I totally agree, I don't like programs moving into the cloud, and especially like Excel, we don't want to have COM to connect to it. That would be very terrible for me, because I do that a lot. But it's the latency is my biggest button pusher of when people talk about moving your program's not going to be on your computer, it's going to be in the cloud, and that latency just drives me batty. Like, I want it local, I want it running fast and responsive.
Yeah, I totally get that, and sure enough, you can get maybe down to a few hundred milliseconds in all. You can get the latency even lower than that, but as soon as you get the smallest hiccup, I heard some years back that the human brain visually and the hearing center can compensate for about 200 milliseconds of delay on sound contra the visual thing. So to me, that was interesting that we apparently can do that without even consciously thinking about it. Right. But I know from a lot of people,
Well, I was going to ask you, if people understand that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, an example of that would be you're watching a movie, but the audio is out of sync slightly, right? And that's where it could be a little delayed, but our brains will actually not even perceive them as being out of sync, even though they are.
Yeah, up to that 200 millisecond point. And sure enough, you might still be able to sense.
If you try. Yeah.
You will be like, ain't the audio
something
too
wrong,
fast or too slow, but you won't be able to just instantly be irritated by it.
Well, that's what I was going to say was, let's up it to 400 milliseconds, and suddenly you can't even, it's not even watchable, right? It's just, you get, it's not even like, to me, I can't literally watch it. Like, I have to stop looking because it's just painful.
Yeah, it truly is painful, and here in Denmark, at least, there ain't much what is it called, dubbing we have never really done that. Danish isn't a big enough language to really warrant that you would do that with all foreign
languages
media. But Germany, they do it. France, they do it, and I don't know if English countries do it with foreign languages. I don't know.
Very rare. Yeah.
But the idea of doing that is like, oh, that must be painstaking for the editors or whatever you say to make sure that makes just a bit of sense. Because to me, it's like if I'm to hear my own language and lips are moving weirdly compared to the sound, I've always just listened to English movies and they don't use the subtitles, or subtitles is the word. So I do really see people's expressions and stuff like that. And when you watch animated movies where often the sound is actually, you can see it on how they automate the mouth movement. It's not as particular when they say an O or an F or an S, or they don't mimic it as precisely, which makes quite good sense because it's much easier for people to watch it in other languages. But yeah, I'm totally off topic. I don't know where I went with that, but
not just you.
Hey.
Yeah. I opened the path up and pointed to it, and I'm like, hey. So anyway, the whole thing, I think, gets back to now being able to use AutoHotkey and do things locally, right? That is one of the benefits. You don't have to worry about the internet, right? You can do things regardless of what's going on with your access to the internet. You can do them locally. They're easier.
Both you and me are probably also in places where internet is normally quite accessible. Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah.
It's something that you have. I often, when people come to me with these conspiracy theories of companies always listening on your devices, I'm like, and then they use your internet connection and send the information to their servers. No, I don't believe they do, because if they did that on someone who lived in Nigeria, they would freak out, because they would actually be paying maybe $3 a minute or something.
Oh, that's a great point.
So if the phone just did that in the background, it's like, no. Because hey, one thing is here where we feel like we have free unlimited internet, or not free, but at least unlimited. It might not be something we keep an eye on, but people who actually go to a cafe where there is free internet, because otherwise it would cost them like an arm and a leg, you can't have something like that running in the background doing weird things with your data plan. So cool. There are totally places where internet is more rare.
As we've both seen, though, right, Jackie, on average, and it makes sense. Companies like Microsoft, they love that model because it makes it really easy to keep everyone on the same version of their software, right? So
and software as a service, isn't that what it's called? It's like it's just a good business plan, right?
Absolutely, right.
It's just, if you can keep people on one way, one entry, one version, one update plan, or whatever it might be, as a company, they will save so much money from not having to support all kinds of different versions and hardware.
And also, I think you overall lower the price per month. You lower, but you get them on a regular schedule. So the argument is, well, you'll always have the latest and greatest version of Excel or whatever it is. But in reality, the other programs you'd buy, but they were yours, and you would just use it for maybe 5 years and not think twice. But now you're paying, and maybe even annually, but you're paying every year, and I think those companies get more money in the long run.
Yeah, totally. And sure enough, if you try to automate something with, I don't even remember, it's not called Flow anymore, it's Power Apps or whatever it is in Office.
Right.
It's something that's happening within the Office architecture on a given type of setup. It's much easier to make something foolproof if you control all aspects of it. So in Microsoft's case, it's like, yeah, I want to interact with Excel and Outlook. Sure. In some cases, on your local computer, you have Outlook 2016 and you have Excel 2007, and a programmer will be able to make whatever needs to happen in the middle. But you can give people some much more powerful things if you know exactly what they're using on both ends.
Well, and let's expound on that, Jackie, because I think the logical next statement out of, if I hadn't interrupted you, would have been not only more powerful things for you, Jackie, but because everybody is using the same one, it's more people now can start using, the same automation that you wrote, right? Because everyone's on the same version, right?
Exactly.
So that is a win. There are pluses to it. Now, the sad part is for AutoHotkey is that may not be as, maybe it's switching to more of a Zapier type tool where you're using an online service, to automate that. Of course, so we know we've done, API calls with AutoHotkey. Maybe there'll be endpoints that we can, use API calls for actually doing the stuff. So maybe AutoHotkey in the long run can still have an programmatic way to control these things without looking for an image and clicking it.
Yeah, and I'd say I saw, what was it I saw? I saw a movie, a small animated thing. Someone posted it in the off-topic thread, I believe, on the forum, where it was showing the popularity of programming languages over time.
Oh.
And it started in maybe the 60s or 70s, something like that. It was just like ticking years, like every second a year or something.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And apparently, or it went from in the 60s to maybe 2018, 19, something like that. And the interesting part was that the biggest or most popular, they keep the position pretty fairly and long. But as soon as some kind of language, and I don't know if it's better or whatever happens with popularity, but they show up and they very quickly move far up the ladder. And the one that was the most popular before ends up within a few years of almost dropping off the list. It's like the ones that are in the middle kind of stay there.
Oh, interesting. I get it.
Like so kinda, right? I didn't keep an eye on all of them, but that's what I kind of saw. And sure enough, C, which maybe took Fontaine or whatever they all were called, and then that was popular, then that fell down. But the C kind of stayed consistent. And then you had other types of languages that came and went, and C++ went up, got popular, fell down, C#. But they're all there in the middle from when they started. And I think the last one, the most popular one, was Python, which maybe came about within the last 10 years or something, or at least moved to the top. And in the meantime, those back from the 60s and 70s and stuff like that had fallen off maybe in the 90s or something like that. But it's interesting to see those that just kept having that place there in the middle because they're just able to do what they do so well. I think AutoHotkey kind of falls into something like that.
Well, and I think you would agree with that. I mean, one of the biggest benefits, which we both say with AutoHotkey, right, is that you can programmatically connect to Windows like no other program can, right? There's so many ways to connect and automate a Windows PC. That's its big niche. And as long as Windows is the big dog, or unless Windows changes fundamentally how they do everything, AutoHotkey will stick around, right? I mean,
yeah, and I'd say a lot of people are like, yeah, but mobile devices will overtake it, and there are now more Android devices, and Java is more popular than anything else and stuff like that. It was also on the list and then was quite popular for quite a long time. But it's still it's not impossible, but it's still not that nice to work on. It's just not that nice. Okay, you can get a Chromebook, or you can connect something to this one and let this one be the brain and have a separate screen like we have on the computers and stuff like that. And sure enough, the computers at work are now quite small, and we don't even get docking stations for them anymore. They just get a cable, and that's it. That's what we're left with. But it's still a desktop computer, and even if it moved into the cloud, this setup with a stationary screen and some kind of pointing device and something to type on, even if it becomes virtual or so I'm not even sure if I'd go with a virtual reality goggles or whatever, because unless I am truly just at home here working from home, I wouldn't be in an office with something that would be blocking my room perception. And so I think we're still a ways off from some of these things happening. So I think that Windows and OSs of that type will has quite a few years left in them.
And Jackie, I know you're a bit younger than me, and even though I know you got into computers at a younger age than I did, but I because I'm older, I think I was around. I don't think you were around for this part of it, but I'm sure you've heard of it. But for quite a while before PCs, right, there were terminals, right, where people didn't have an actual like CPU and hard drive and stuff at their desk. They just had the keyboard and the screen, and they were connecting to basically the what the hell are they called? The main computer? No.
Yeah. Mainframe.
Mainframe, maybe, whatever. But something
server.
Like that, right? Yeah. And what's interesting is we're kind of in some ways shifting programmatically to a similar thing by pushing stuff into the cloud, right? You're going to have a device that's still, you need your keyboard and your monitors and some way to connect to them. Maybe the processing is or isn't done on that local device, but more of it's done offsite possibly. But yeah, I agree. Phones, if they actually just redid how they approach it, which it sounds like what your work is doing, right? It's more of a very small thing, but you have still have your keyboard and mouse, right? That's the thing that when people years ago thought tablets are going to be the death of PCs, and it's like you need a keyboard and a mouse. I mean, that's just Yeah,
I'd say Windows or Microsoft might be the right word with their Surface devices. They did attempt and they did a good attempt at giving you a tablet type thing with a keyboard thingy attached, and with both iDevices and Android devices now supporting Bluetooth pointing thing, so you can connect the Bluetooth mouse to your device and stuff like that. Sure enough, they're moving there, but it's still at some point the Arthur C. Clarke prediction of 5 mega computers in the world, or how many it was, he said, it might end up being true. Because
that'd be ironic. Yeah. The guy,
it's like if we switch over to quantum computers and we don't solve some of their specific needs with cooling and all that type of stuff, then that might be the way of doing it. If you have latency of under 1 milliseconds because of 5G or 7G or whatever it's called, it's not really possible because of light speed, but hey, 7.5 seconds around, 7.5 times around the Earth in 1 second. So if you take 1,000 milliseconds and deviate that with 7.5, you have the lowest possible latency, unless you can break the speed of light. But
I'm working on it.
Yeah. Hey, quantum entanglement, maybe. I'm not saying it's not possible.
Well, I know just that they've been working on non-digital, non-AV, or on-off computers, right? Of doing stuff with things that are, it's quite amazing. But anyway.
Yeah, quantum computers or those qubits or whatever it's called. I don't remember all of them, but the thing of a lot of what computers today are doing is binary, right? On off,
right?
Transistors. Where with the quantum one, you have that superposition mixed in, so it doesn't really have to be on or off. It could be both or none, and it's like it's exponentially how many more possibility it actually gives you in that 1 byte position. But hey, whatever, it's just
we'll handle that one in our next podcast.
Yeah.
All right, we've been chatting a while. Let's
that was sure enough, Joe.
Hopefully interesting for other people.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully.
Yeah. Awesome, man. It was good talking to you.
Yeah. Bye, Joe.
Bye. Hold. Where?